All right, hello everyone. My name is Elena with Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center. I'm so glad that y'all are here today and stopping to watch this video. We are here right now with Elizabeth Vanderkamp, our dear friend, who instead of an art prompt today, she's actually going to be telling us a story that we are super excited about. So Elizabeth, I hand it over to you.
Thanks, Elena, and hello, everybody. It is so good to be with you again. It's not a Tuesday. Usually we're together on Tuesdays. Today's Thursday. And behind me, I'm just going to turn so you can see our, 4 words. Once upon a time. I think those are magical words because we don't know what's going to happen after that, other than a story, but we don't know what's going to happen in the story. So I'd like to share with you one of my favorite stories. And before I do that, I invite you to sit back. It's child appropriate, so if you have children around, please feel free to invite them. And you can even close your eyes. So once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a king, and he had a tiny kingdom by the sea. Now this king, obviously, was a prince before he became a king. And even as a little boy, he was known as not very nice. And the older he got, instead of that changing, it got worse. He got meaner and meaner and meaner. And by the time he became king at age 27, he was cruel. He enjoyed inflicting very harsh punishments. He enjoyed taking the riches of his kingdom for himself and not sharing them with the people of his land. And his custom was every morning to take a walk by the sea. Now it was a cold place where he reigned, and this particular day it was unusually cold. And as the king took his walk by the sea, he looked into the water and he thought, I wonder how cold the water is. So he pulled off his royal glove and he stuck his royal fingers in the water and he pulled them right out. Even in that 1 second, he was shivering just from his fingers being in the water. And as he put his royal glove back on, his most wicked idea came to him. And this was it. He sent a challenge to all the people of his land that whoever could go out into that water and stay for an entire day and an entire night neck deep, he would give that person 100 gold coins. Well, the challenge went to all the people in the land, and they gathered in the coffee houses and the taverns and the town squares, and they thought, oh no, not only is our king mean, but now maybe he has dementia. We know how cold that water is. No way. But of course, there was one man who really needed the money. His parents had been sick, and he needed money for them to see the doctor. His wife was all right, but not exactly a healthy person, but he was. He thought, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'm young, and I'm a very good swimmer. I bet I could do it. So he went to the king. Your Majesty, I accept your challenge. And the king said, that's fine, but you listen to me. You cannot use anything, nothing, to keep yourself warm. Do you understand? Yes, Your Majesty. So the next morning, the man and the king met by the sea, and the man disrobed except for his bathing suit, and he began walking into that water. Well, he was only up to his ankles, and he thought, this is a bad idea. I should just turn around. But it seemed as though a gentle force was pushing him forward, so he kept walking. He got up to his knees, to his hips, to his stomach, to his chest, and to his neck. It was so cold. And he closed his eyes and he said a prayer. He said, please God, help me do this. And when he opened his eyes, he was facing east. And the sun was just poking over the horizon. And he thought, that's it. I will use my imagination and focus on the sun. The sun is hot. It is blazing. It is boiling. It is on fire. And so am I. So all day, all he let himself think about was the sun rising in the sky. It was hot. It was hot. he was so hot. And the sun, of course, got to high noon and then set in the west. And the man turned and watched the moon or the sun set. And he thought, I've made it this far. I'll focus on the moon because the moon is a reflection of the sun's light. And he looked up and it was the night of no moon. That's all right, he thought. I'll focus on a star because stars, there's so many stars that are even hotter than our sun. And he looked up and it was as though these mean clouds had heard him and they rolled in and blocked every star. And he closed his eyes again and said, oh God, you've brought me this far, please help. And this time, when he opened his eyes, he realized the king's palace was stretched before him. And it was all dark except one window up in the corner. And in that window, there was a woman next to a candle. And even though she was far away, he could have sworn she was looking at him. And he looked at her, and she stayed in the window all night. And the candle burned all night. And the next morning, shivering, purple, teeth clacking, he walked out of the water. And there was the king, and he said, Your Majesty, my 100 gold coins, please. And the king said, just a minute. You cheated. Cheated? Your Majesty, look at me, I did not cheat. And the king said, well, you must have. You must have used something to keep yourself warm. I guess I did. I used my imagination. And the king said, I knew it! Throw him in the dungeon. And the man was thrown in the dungeon. Well, the woman in the window was the king's daughter. And when she heard what her father had done, she ran away. And nobody could find her. For a day, for 2 days, for 3 days. It was 2 weeks later that one of the king's men came and said, Your Majesty, I found her, but she won't come home. Well, then take me to her. So the king was taken to his daughter, and she was sitting cross-legged under a tree. It was clear that she had not bathed and that she had barely eaten in the time that she had been away. She was sitting next to a candle, and her father said, What are you doing? And she said, Father, I'm cooking rice. You're cooking rice? Yes. She said, see my candle? And see that pot of rice hanging from the tree? I'm cooking it. Well, you can't cook rice with a candle. No. My candle kept a man warm all night long in a freezing cold sea. I thought surely it could cook a little pot of rice. When she said that, something in her father's mean, tiny heart broke open. And he lay down and put his head in her lap and cried for all the things he had done over the years. And his daughter, in her wisdom, let him cry. And when he was finished, she wiped his tears. And together they walked back to the palace, straight to the dungeon, where the king bowed to the man, apologized, and gave him 200 gold coins. And thereafter, no matter what the weather, the king took his walk by the sea every morning, and every day he dove into the waves to remind himself who he had been and who he had become. And because of his daughter's love and kindness, that was a very kind king indeed. The end. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.